I'd like you to close your eyes and I'd like you to imagine a world. I'd like you to imagine a world where every single thing that we create, that we design, that we build, that we even manufacture, serves humanity and our planet. Every single thing that we create serves. Now it would be a very different world, right? It would be a fairer, healthier, more just and sustainable world, because it is possible, and there are organizations and there are social enterprises and there are businesses that put people and planet first, and they're successful and they make money. And we have to understand that's possible in order to imagine and create a better world. We're from an organisation called Creative Conscience, and we've partnered with the Design Museum today to bring people together to talk about how we can consume consciously.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest, I don't want you to riot, I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now, and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore! Get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
We're all creative thinkers, and I believe that we can all change behaviours through using creative ideas. It's incredibly important that we focus on the positive. We can all be part of making the change that we need to, and today we're celebrating those projects and those concepts which will change the world.
Transparent will make ethical fashion no longer a niche market for the younger consumers. It will help inspire a whole new generation of brands to be more sustainable within their practices.
We want to leave people inspired. Quite often people feel disillusioned and disengaged, so it's really important that we focus on solutions to change things for the better.
My project is a sustainable fashion app called Care Label, and it's essentially an app to increase transparency and conversation between consumers and brands. So the idea is that a consumer would be able to go into a store, scan an item, and it would give the whole ethical background or ethical brand nutrition.
My project is called POC, and it's basically food packaging material made out of seagrass. It's washed up seagrass waste, and I basically found this material on the shores of the Mediterranean. And it turned out it's an antibacterial material, and you can extract the binding agent from the fiber itself, so you can actually make packaging out of it. Right now it's being presented at the Fachpack in Nuremberg in Germany, so it's the biggest packaging fair in Europe, and yeah, let's see. Let's go from there then.
So today, in addition to the Creative Conscience winners, we've got some speakers who I think really sort of show that it is possible to actually do this stuff and to make a difference and to make a living at the same time. You know, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Some of you might have followed us already on social media, but essentially we're developing up one of the world's first returnable food packaging systems. It's enabling consumers to buy their food and drink and return it when it's convenient to return to a network of drop points. As creators, we're always looking for new solutions. We're not necessarily always looking at the sort of, your London or your New York, but we should always be actively looking at how are other people doing things. When we looked at enterprise models in developing world, so think about your chaiwalas. And roadside tea vendors have been serving chai in glass cups, and it has actually a really interesting history if you look back. But the point is that it's distributed in a reusable container. Someone goes and collects it, brings it back, washes it, and it's redistributed. What we decided to do was to focus on some of the big brands who are also saying, hey, we need this solution. So for everyone in the room who's interested, this is a design brief. This is real.
I think everyone has the power to change the way you consume, and I also think everyone has the power to think creatively. It's true, we are all consumers and we do have the power to choose what we buy and what we consume in that sense, but we also have the power to create, and that's something I think that I'd like to see coming out a lot more, is people thinking not only about the choices of the things that they buy and consume, but what can they give back, and that's where I think the real power is.
So Ruby Moon is a company that I formed. It's a fashion company primarily. We sell clothing, but it's much more than that because it has both a social and an environmental impact. With that, I guess I wanted to form a company that was the world's first affordable and ethical swimwear brand. And what we do at Ruby Moon is to consider just more than the style of a garment. We consider the fabric, the sourcing, the sewing, the transport, and finally, what is the long-term and short-term impact of the garments that we make.
The advice that I'd give anyone who wants to create positive change is to really think about the products and services that they choose to buy on a daily basis, how we can prolong the environmental impact of any goods or products is actually to prolong their use, and that makes the biggest environmental impact on the planet right now, is prolonging the use of any goods that you might buy. And we make all our collection from a high-tech fabric, as mentioned, which is much stronger than normal nylon lycra and is certified with twice as much resistance to exposure to chlorine, sunlight and seawater with a high UV protection. We use regenerated fishing nets, ghost fishing nets that are drifting out in the ocean to make our nylon lycra, and therefore we have a 43% less carbon emissions during the production of our clothing. As mentioned earlier, we also have a social impact. Our social impact is that we make loans to women entrepreneurs in 13 developing countries. Now, Ruby Moon donates all of its profits. 100% of our profit goes to Lend With Care. It's a London-based charity and they work with microfinance projects around the world.
We all have some capacity to make a difference. It's in our will, and if we have the will to do it, I think we can make that difference. I think it's important to recognize that positive change comes at many scales. It's about the small actions that lead to the big actions as well, and it's not always about creating sort of big game-changing initiatives and creating something from scratch, but actually making small changes along the way within existing systems. Why it's important? This is it. This is the the lives that we have. This is the planet that we have, and there's nothing more important than that.
So I'm going to start with a question: why buy when you can borrow? It's a really simple question. So yeah, what is Library of Things? Well, it's really as simple as the name suggests. Instead of going into a library and borrowing books, you can go in and borrow things. We have a lot of very functional things like carpet cleaners and steam cleaners and things like that, but we also have ukuleles and kites, and they might not get borrowed as much as the really functional stuff, but it's still really cool to have that there so that people can feel a little bit like there's play involved in borrowing. But it's more than actually just the things. In fact, the things are just a very small part of what we do. A lot of it is the people. They're far more important. They're the ones that crowdfund for it to be there and then get heavily involved in the leading and the running of it, whether it be putting on skill sharing events or actually looking after the things themselves. These are the guys who really do believe that borrowing can be better than buying. And I'd invite you all to kind of ask yourselves why you're still buying when you can borrow. Thank you very much.
We can each change things by just thinking about how we behave and how we consume, like whether we take a bag to the shop or use a plastic cup when we go into coffee shops. We can only lead by example, and we can change one person at a time.